Good morning and welcome to Rising. We have a Thursday-tastic show for you today. I sometimes miss Ryan Grimm's deadpan kind of introduction to the show. We have a show for you today. It will be a show.
It's a special kind of charm.
What are we talking about?
Look, you weren't kidding. It has been an incredible news cycle.
Yes.
House Republicans held their first hearings into the Twitter files yesterday, calling to the stand several former Twitter executives in what devolved into a partisan showdown over the Hunter Biden laptop story, former President Trump's suspension, COVID misinformation, and more. FBI official turned counsel for Twitter, Jim Baker, denied having any recollection about speaking with the FBI regarding the laptop found abandoned in Delaware.
Mr. Baker, you said you didn't talk with the FBI that day. Did you talk to the FBI about the Hunter Biden laptop story prior to then or after that day?
I'm trying to make sure I can answer this question consistent with the restrictions that I talked about in my opening
Simple
statement.
question. You
Yeah.
talked to the FBI about the Hunter Biden story.
I do, to the best of my recollection, I did not talk to the FBI about the Hunter Biden story before that day.
Did you talk to him after it? You said your
recall.
response is real specific to the chairman. You said, I did not talk to the FBI about the Hunter Biden laptop story that day. I assume that day is October 14th. I want to know if you talked to him on the 13th or before, or if you talked to him on the 15th and after.
I don't recall speaking to the FBI, sitting here today, I don't recall speaking to the FBI at all about the Hunter Biden matter.
Well, then why'd you answer it the way you did?
I beg your pardon?
I yield back to.
Then former global head of trust and safety, Yael Roth, admitted the decision to censor the Hunter Biden story was made in error.
In 2020, Twitter noticed activity related to the laptop that, at first glance, bore a lot of similarities to the 2016 Russian hack and leak operation targeting the DNC. And we had to decide what to do. And in that moment, with limited information, Twitter made a mistake. Under the distribution of hacked material policy, the company decided to prevent links to the New York Post stories about the laptop from being shared across the service. I've been clear that in my judgment at the time, Twitter should not have taken action to block the New York Post's reporting. And just 24 hours after doing so, the company acknowledged its error. But the decisions here aren't straightforward, and hindsight is 2020. It isn't obvious what the right response is to a suspected but not confirmed cyber attack by another government on a presidential election. I believe Twitter erred in this case because we wanted to avoid repeating the mistakes of 2016.
But one of the moments that everybody is talking about from this hearing has to do with what Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had to say about the purpose of the hearing entirely. Let's watch that.
Faced by other news outlets that hoped to corroborate reporting, as many did. The newspaper wasn't sharing what it obtained. New York Post had this alleged information and was trying to publish it without any corroboration, without any backup information. They were trying to publish it to Twitter. Twitter did not let them, and now they were upset. I believe that political operatives who sought to inject explosive disinformation with the Washington Post couldn't get away with it. And now they're livid, and they want the ability to do that again. They want the ability to inject this again. So they've dragged a social media platform here in Congress. They're weaponizing the use of this committee so that they can do it again. A whole hearing about a 24-hour hiccup in a right-wing political operation. That is why we are here right now. And it's just an abuse of public resources, an abuse of public time. We could be talking about healthcare. We could be talking about bringing down the cost of prescription drugs. We could be talking about abortion rights, civil rights, voting rights. But instead, we're talking about Hunter Biden's half-fake laptop story. I mean, this is an embarrassment. But I'll go into it.
Half fake?
Yeah, so I want to, we'll circle back to the earlier stuff. Let's start with AOC Half Fake.
That's bizarre. I think that this is evidence, I think, perhaps of the balkanization of media. I think a lot of these liberals, honestly, maybe don't even realize that they're still caught up in the narratives from 2020. They don't realize this is an entirely legitimate story. Look, there's something to the idea that the hiccup was only 24 hours and maybe the Republicans have made more of this than is necessary. But they're able to do that precisely because of statements like this and a refusal of Democrats to acknowledge there was a mistake in the first place.
Yeah, I frankly thought AOC, even though I disagree with her a lot, was better than that. It is disconcerting to me that she's, someone who is at least supposedly knowledgeable about left-wing narratives, but the very left-wing narrative, like yourself and the circles you travel in, understands that this Russiagate fervor was wrong and had terrible consequences. So for her to not know that there was legitimacy to this story. It's based on factual information. You can disagree with the implications, fine, but it was not a Russia interference attempt. It was a real laptop. They did real journalism, and it was a terrible mistake not to publish it. For her to, and she's using almost she's using the Taylor Lorenz Washington Post language of this was a right-wing campaign sort of thing.
Like, who
so
cares?
It's bad by it's just bad if conservatives were trying to get their stuff out there because
who cares?
I don't know.
A lot of information, a lot of reporting is politically salient. The idea that you don't care about some speech being suppressed because it happened to be speech that advantaged your opponent is the most short-sighted thinking I can imagine. And both AOC and Yoel Roth in their respective clips alluded to the idea that because there was, in fact, in reality, a significant Russian disinformation campaign happening in 2020 and in 2016 that had an effect on the election, they were justified in erring on the side of caution, as Yoel Roth says, and suppressing this information. But it also feels like they are still overly credulous about the extent to which there was any Russian interference to begin with. So it's like compounding levels of not understanding what actually happened, which is feeding, I think, this kind of self-righteous. I think that she believes she's legitimately righteous because she doesn't understand what actually happened. She's still ignorant about the history.
Right. The emails were hacked, yes, inappropriate, but the information that was released, and now this is going back to 2016 of Podesta, that was real information.
The hack was a phishing attempt that it's supposed to target grandmas.
Again, it was real information. You can say that was improper, but it was not. But the information, it's just like someone, whatever journalist it was a left-wing journalist who overheard, Mitt Romney in 2012 make there's 48% of the country or whatever that wouldn't vote for, he information he wasn't supposed to hear and then shared it, and it was very consequential for that election, and no one said, oh, that was a liberal progressive interference.
Was it even true? Let's suppress the quote until we can really determine whether or not it's even true.
Right.
Like that's, and also I gotta say, there's this thing that's also happening with the New York Post in particular. I think I said this yesterday. It's not my favorite newspaper. I don't think it's like the height of journalism or anything like that. But it is a real mainstream paper. And we saw this in the Don Lemon clip that we discussed yesterday. There is this casual dismissal of things that are reported in the New York Post as though it's okay to censor it, like it's a tabloid, like it's the National Enquirer or somebody's zine from 1997. And you can hear it again in the tone of how they talk about, well, just because the New York Post reported this, we have to have it on Twitter. Yes, at least you have to have a legitimate rationale for why you censored it. And let's not forget what we learned from the Twitter files. We saw internally that Twitter was struggling with coming up with a reason based on its own protocols to censor the Hunter laptop information and to censor Donald Trump. They knew internally at the time that it was their own policies didn't really offer an answer here, and they had to kind of reverse engineer an excuse to get the stuff off the platform. So why are we pretending? Why is AOC pretending like none of that actually happened?
Right. No, it was really, really bad on her part. So I want to circle back to then what the actual former Twitter employees, Vijaya Gad, Jim Baker, Yoel Roth were saying. So Jim Baker there was asked about, and remember, he came to Twitter from the FBI. Now he's being asked about conversations he might have had with the FBI. I did not find his responses remotely believable. The way he said it, I suspect, this is just me giving my take here. I don't know. I don't have any extra information. It seems to me like this is a company man, his company being not Twitter, but the FBI.
Yeah.
It's looked to me like he was maybe trying to protect the agency. I would imagine he's someone who has tremendous respect for the FBI and doesn't like seeing it maligned. It looked to me like he was finding a way to not say that he'd had conversations. He said he didn't have conversations with the FBI. He swore it in front of Congress, but it was I don't recall when specifically. Maybe that topic. Maybe I didn't say it to them, but they said it to me. I don't know. It left a lot of room for, and Jim Jordan was seizing on that a little bit. Like, how are you answering this question?
Yeah, Jim Jordan pointing out that he answered very specifically, I did not talk to them on that day.
Yeah.
It's like if you ask me, Brianna, did you steal my favorite Rising mug? And I said, well, yesterday I certainly was not using your favorite Rising mug. Obviously, there's an implication.
That's what happened to the Rising mug.
Now, it's not necessarily the case. And he dropped his line of questioning. I don't know if he ran out of time or whatever. But that was a good line of questioning for him to go down. Look, this whole thing leads me to believe that as useful as the Twitter files have been, we need a more comprehensive document disclosure than what has been provided thus far. I think that there has been legitimate reporting that has revealed legitimate interference or a close relationship between these state institutions like the FBI and a platform which has one public-facing moderation guideline for the normies and a whole other system that's going on behind the scenes for powerful, affluent, and government-aligned actors. And the public deserves to know about that.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking a lot more about this today. My closing thought for this segment, I am starting to get a little tired of just hearing from Yoel Roth and Vijaya Gad, et cetera, and hearing what their state of mind was as this decision was made. I think they've pretty much addressed it at this point. They know it was wrong. They admit it was wrong. Yoel Roth has kind of said he wasn't really comfortable with it, but the higher-ups said we should do this, and then it was a bad decision being reached in real time by those people. We've kind of conclusively covered that. If you want to protect free expression online from censorship, which was the literal title of this hearing, at some point we need to involve the FBI. We need to involve the people who are telling these figures who are pushing them, that we've seen from reporting from the Twitter files, from the reporting I did on Facebook. The push is coming from these agencies, and it's a little bit rich of Republicans to be like dragging employees of Twitter before Congress and screaming at them, why do you do what the government tells you to do?
Right.
But like, that's almost an example of you doing the thing you're mad at them for doing.
Right.
So at some point, the government has to look inward at its role in causing all of this.
Well, maybe we'll learn more about the FBI's involvement at the Abolish the FBI hearings.
Yes, that are being hosted by Republicans.
Right, exactly. Well, coming up, Twitter Files author Michael Schellenberger joins us with his reaction to yesterday's meetings. I'll also tell you more about what I think about this subject on My Radar coming up next.